Darren Dreger joins us on the Insider Hotline, TSN Hockey Insider. Jamie said his palatial estate is so big he needs 3. You need 1 for each floor. He was kind of walking us through it the other day. How many AC units have you got out there?
Just one big mofo.
That's
what I got. That's what I got. Now,
size matters.
Yeah, at the Cabbage, Lake of the Prairies, I've got 3, but there's a reason behind that. I mean, it's because you can't use a traditional air conditioner, so you have to go with the individual units, not the window units. These ones are like they have their own chiller units outside, and they hang on the wall, and they're nice and new and very expensive. But no, but Noodles is like that. That is a palatial estate. I've never been invited there, but what I hear, and if you guys ever want to get distracted, derailed in one of these conversations like we are right now, get Noodles to describe the lengths that he goes to secure said palace.
Oh, like, he's a okay.
Like bear spray in every corner, baseball bats.
He loves to worry.
He does. You would know, yeah. He 100% loves to worry. He's always got something going on, man. He's hilarious.
Well, we're gonna we want to get to you because you got some work to do today. I guess there's some kind of a presser or something going on in Toronto, which we'll get to. But we were talking about the Canes and the Panthers, and to suggest that this hasn't become a mental issue or there's too much. I mean, there's just too many bodies on the ground for this not to be. Carolina has 14 straight losses in a conference final. The Panthers just have them in their back pocket right now. That was a drubbing last night.
Yeah, it was. And look, we went through it here in this 7-game series between the Leafs and the Florida Panthers. And maybe it's time we just recognize how good this Florida team is. And, the coaches, Brenda Moore, Craig Berube, hey, we didn't get to our game. We weren't able to establish our identity, the forecheck, the pace, the structure, all of that. Okay, I get it. But maybe that has more to do with Florida just pinning you in the offensive zone the way that they started that game last night. I mean, it doesn't appear, at least in the East yet, that there's a team that has an answer for what the Florida Panthers can throw at you. And Ray Ferraro and I were talking about on our podcast yesterday about how it feels like Matthew Tkachuk is about to introduce himself into the postseason. It's not like he's played bad to this point. He really hasn't. And his teammates will acknowledge that, he's one of those guys that isn't necessarily driven by ego. He doesn't look at the score sheet at the end of the night and say, yeah, you know what? I need to do more because I'm not. No, as long as the Panthers are winning and he's establishing his game, then he's fine with that. But he has a big game. That line comes up big. And who's Carolina going to answer with there? Like their top guys, I wouldn't say they look afraid. I think that's rude. I mean, you're a hockey player. You're not necessarily afraid, but
I've seen a few, Darren. I've seen a few that are.
I bet you have.
But they look underwater. They look, if not intimidated or what, but they just look unprepared or to a certain extent, they're unwilling to take that on. There's no counterpunch coming anywhere.
I think you had a point to make and we interrupted, but is it two things where the Canes are a good team? Let's not take anything away, but they had an easier path to get to where they are today.
Yeah.
Than Florida did.
Correct.
And you can say all you want. I think that's what you're alluding to was, we didn't get to play our game. You're not allowed to.
No.
We don't care if you want that. No, you're not allowed to because we're going to play our game.
Yeah. And I mean, and not every night because Bennett is consistent. Go down the list of the guys that have been consistent contributors for the Florida Panthers. But, there are a couple of guys and then it's by mass. It's, this guy will show up and he'll get a timely goal. Oh, there's another guy, like that third line for the Florida Panthers, if you want to call it that, with Marchand and Luosterainen. I mean, those guys are so often when you acquire a player at the trade deadline, it just doesn't work out. There's just not enough time left in the regular season to gel for that player to come online with the coaching staff, the head coach especially, all of those things. And I don't think it's lip service. I mean, Marchand has talked about it. Paul Maurice has talked about it. The first practice that he had with those guys on that line, he says it just felt right. They just clicked. And now you got a lethal combination of Marchand generating offense, being good defensively as a line, and then him playing the role of the pest as well or better than anyone else. And that's why like that Gostebert shooting the puck at Marchand. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're never going to beat the Florida Panthers in a game of pestability. You're not, because they're wired for that to a man. They're wired for that. So they've found a way, Florida has, to just completely discombobulate everyone with the Carolina Hurricanes. And now we'll see if Carolina has any form of response.
Billy Lindsay, an old teammate, he does the color on the radio for the Panthers.
Yeah.
I was listening to game 1 on the radio, and I was expecting Florida to be a little bit flat after a 7-game series against.
Yeah.
It almost seemed, I wasn't watching, but Billy was alluding to the fact that it seemed like Carolina wanted to initiate and show the Panthers that we can handle, we're tough too, and we're going to stand up to you, and you can't bully us. And it almost dragged the Panthers into the fight. It almost woke them up a little bit. I don't know if they were going to be flat, but he was saying that it seemed like maybe they opened the door to creating the emotion for the Panthers. And I'm wondering if all the teams nowadays, because like the old Broad Street Bullies, they had a reputation, and when you had to go play them, you felt like you had to, well, we can protect ourselves. Is it sort of the same? And I think it's the wrong approach almost.
I agree with you, man.
Show you that we can handle your toughness.
Yeah.
Just win.
So it's funny you bring this up, because Paul Maurice and I had a text exchange during the Oiler Vegas series. And I think it was the final game, the game where Edmonton clinched. And, we're just going back and forth, and he goes, and he wasn't making light of the series with the Maple Leafs, because in different ways, there were some challenges. But, we in the media covering that series are talking about how nasty it was. And it was borderline mean. And this was going on. Look at that forecheck and big hit and all this stuff. He's like, this hasn't been nasty even a little bit. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, he's asking me, like, where's this narrative that this series, Toronto, Florida, is mean and ugly? Because I watched a game last night between Edmonton and Vegas, and he goes, there were battles in that game, one-on-one battles in that game. It's playoff hockey, and I was thoroughly entertained. So, I mean, it's interesting, the different interpretations. Maybe the Maple Leafs in that series did think that Florida was mean and tough and just wouldn't give an inch. And then Florida's like, no, like we haven't even got close to where we need to be yet. And Carolina's living proof now that that's how it goes if you're a Florida Panther.
I wonder how it goes. I know obviously they've not made the cup, let alone won it yet. But they're a couple steps away from their 3rd straight cup appearance, and it's to a certain extent a kind of a copycat league. How do you try and copy what you need some. Barkov's kind of a unicorn. Like I remember. It was his draft year, and we were talking to I forget his name every time. Your old teammate, guy in the 04 team, the Finn. Took the penalty late.
Oh my! Now I'm having the pain in the ass. The Joker.
Yeah.
Oh, Olli Jokinen.
Olli Jokinen.
No,
not Olli. No. The pest.
Jesus Christ.
Ville
Nieminen was playing with a young Sasha Barkov in Finland. And this is as he was starting to make his climb up the draft board. He's like, this guy's a man. He's 17 or 18 or whatever he was. His IQ is through the roof. Yeah. He is man. He is not going to wow you in an interview. He's probably not going to wow you with speed or flash, but this guy is a captain. You hear a lot about kids, but that's the one that stuck with me for a long time, because it's like, this is exactly who this guy is. So you need those guys. But I wonder how many teams, and I feel like Toronto might be one, where we've got high-end skill, but where do we find that piss and vinegar and that give a shit attitude? That we got to find that. I just wonder if there's going to be some guys that might make some money this offseason because they're heart and soul kind of guys again.
Yeah, you find it or you steal it, right? And that's what Toronto tried to do last year. They sign Anthony Stolarz, they bring in Lorentz. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and now you've got Bennett and you've got Aaron Ekblad, who are unrestricted free agents this year. So I don't know. I mean, maybe Florida finds a way to keep one or both of those guys. I'm not sure how. But the one thing I do know, and rightfully so, Billy Zito has been named as a finalist for the General Manager of the Year, along with Cheveldayoff and Jim Nill. It's not shooting fish in a barrel. I know, like, Florida is a destination of choice, but not because the sun shines gloriously most of the time. It's because there's always a chance to win, and the fact that there's a state tax benefit is a pretty significant perk as well. But look at the work that Zito did. I mean, so we all watched the Chicago Blackhawks and Seth Jones flounder with Chicago, right? You know, how many of us were convinced that, okay, as soon as he was acquired by the Florida Panthers, he was going to step into that role, into that blue line, and be a flawless fit, like near perfect for them. I wasn't. I'm sitting there going, geez, you better be sure here, man, because you give up that conditional first in 26. You give up Spencer Knight, who we don't really know how good a goalie he is going to be. And you take on that mammoth contract. Granted, there was a piece of it that was retained, but still, I mean, you have to have organizational depth. Your pro scouts, they can't miss on a contract like that when you're the Florida Panthers, and they didn't. They didn't. So now the Ekblad scenario becomes less of a must if you're Zito and the Florida Panthers. And, you know, if Sam Bennett decides that he's going somewhere else, well, okay, you know, Zito's going to look at Marner. He's going to look at, you know, another available player and plug him in, and away they go next year. I mean, it's just high quality management that's compounded by the fact that they've got a fantastic coach, staff, and a winning culture there that, in my opinion, is second to none.
They've got all the pieces. They've got the team.
Got them all.
They've got the GM. They've got the location. They've got the practice facility now.
Everything.
The taxes. They've got the weather. Why are guys leaving? And even more importantly, I think this year, there were guys that left last year for money.
Right.
And had to me, I didn't live their life. It sure didn't look like it would be as fun as just staying.
Right.
If there was an option. I don't know if they were being offered the contract, but like, who went to Seattle?
Brandon Montour.
Life is not great in Seattle. Right? I'm sorry. Yes, you're making money and you got a good contract. And I'm not, but that's got to be a word of caution for those guys. So we're winning. There's beaches, the taxes,
right.
Life is damn good down here.
It is, but I wonder, tell me if I'm wrong. How much of it, okay, money is obviously going to be a factor.
Everyone's making money.
Always. And okay, I want to use Sam Bennett as exhibit A here, because this is going to be his last mega contract. Like, he's going to hit the grand slam here. So money, number one. Number two, is there a pride factor in this? You know, were you in dressing rooms where you thought you had a pretty good year, a contract year, and then all of a sudden this guy gets extended, this guy gets extended, that guy gets extended, and you're sitting there going, oh, wait a minute, like, now I'm fourth or fifth, and in a salary cap era, I'm like, well, I don't mind leaving a little bit of money on the table, but if I can get $9 million on the open market and I can pick my place to play, and maybe it's in another tax-friendly organization, city, maybe you do that.
You're right. You have to do the deep dive if you're one of those guys and what it adds up to. And it's $10 million over the next day. Who are we to say what $10 million means to Sam Bennett? I don't know.
Right.
I'm just throwing $10 million
sure.
is a number. Yeah. But the other side of that, and I don't know what. Yes, there's a pride thing. For sure there is.
Yeah.
But there's also a team thing.
Yeah.
And clearly these guys love playing together. And that matters.
Sure.
Right? Now you have to do the decision. Rob Ray was in Buffalo and we were in Tampa Bay and we weren't making the playoffs. And I always say this because Rob Ray is a Buffalo Sabre. If there's ever a player that represents the team he played for, to me, it's Rob Ray.
Agreed.
EVY was a Detroit Red Wing, right? So anyway, but Rob Ray could have stayed a Sabre for life, or he could go to Ottawa to take a run at the Cup. What do you want more of?
Mm-hmm.
Sam Bennett, do you want to come to I'm just saying it because
Yeah.
it's on the hot topic. Do you
Right.
want to come to Toronto and try to break the curse? Do you want to carry that burden? And if you do it, do you want the accolades that will come with it? Like there's challenges that players want too, right?
Sure.
So it's not easy, but I would, if I'm sitting back and I'm a player, for myself personally, and I'm looking across at the guy that I just won a cup with and I've been through the battles with, and I absolutely
hear you.
And it's $1 million less, and it's that's a
that tipping point will be different for every guy.
Yes.
What's the dollar where I am now going to leave because I have to? This just makes too much sense.
Yeah. Well, and look, you know what? Was it earlier this week when Maurice was asked on an off day, but what has impressed him the most? And I don't know if that's how the question was worded, but from the day he took the job as head coach of the Florida Panthers to now, and he talked about introducing himself to the players and making all the phone calls. And I think he said his first call was to Carter Verhaeghe, and Verhaeghe didn't even really want to talk about himself. He just wanted to talk about how great his teammates were and the hockey side of it. Oh, this guy's got an incredible shot. The hockey IQ from this guy is tremendous. And to a man, he got that going through that roster. Well, I think that supports what you're saying, Rhett. I really do. And that's why I'm not convinced. Darren Ferris, we kind of jokingly refer to him as the Ferris wheel. Because he always likes to, create that environment around his top free agents, and always likes to march them to July 1st. And he has Sam Bennett and he has Mitch Marner. And he also just acquired Bo Byram with the Buffalo Sabres, who made an agent change, right? And he's a restricted free agent. So there's a lot going on in that agent's world. But at the end of the day, if Bo comes back and Billy Zito creates enough cap space or makes a decision that there will be cap space and it's going to come in around close, I'm with you, man. I mean, Bennett's got a pretty good world happening right there. And all of those, and I understand Sam Bennett would be perfect for Craig Berube, the way that Berube wants the Toronto Maple Leafs to play. I just don't understand why Sam Bennett would choose the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I don't either. Unless there are guys that want to, there's always conversations about, guy from Quebec would want to go play for Montreal. But then you're like, there's a ton of guys that don't. No, but there's still guys that do.
There is, but you know what?
Dougie Gilmour wanted to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. And
different era though, right?
It is a different era, but there are challenges that guys want to accept. And it is appealing to think that you can be the piece, and that I'll call it confidence instead of arrogance. Guys are confident.
Yeah.
It's just like a coach. I can get this club to play better. The player goes, I can make this. I'm going to help this team get over. Of course I am.
Yeah. And every top free agent talks to the coach, obviously, before he signs with that team. So there would be, I think, a pretty strong connection. I mean, I don't know what the history is between Bennett and Brad Treliving back to the Calgary days, but Sam Bennett became a real good hockey player in a hurry after he left the Calgary Flames. Yeah. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I'm not trying to belittle the Toronto Maple Leafs in whatever role they're going to try and take in free agency. All I'm saying is, if it's not Florida for Sam Bennett, he's going to have 20 other offers in addition to Toronto. So lots of decisions to be made.
You have you have work duties coming up in about 9 minutes, so we will keep you on that. But a big day in Toronto. The president, Brendan Shanahan. It's 11 years of work, and some good, some bad, like is always the case. Yeah. It kind of maybe a little clunky, given permission to talk to the New York Islanders before he was dismissed. That doesn't bode well for his time in Toronto. But I guess just read on his departure and what you expect to hear today.
I mean, the only reason I was surprised is because, through round two, it seemed like the group was pretty happy. Well, they were very happy in the first two games of the series on home ice, and not so happy based on how things unraveled in Game 5 and Game 7 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that may have ultimately pushed Keith Pelley and the board of Maple Leaf Sports to make the decision not to extend the contract of Brendan Shanahan. And you look at the body of the work. I mean, Shanny's been allowed to put his fingerprints all over this organization for more than a decade. And not through lack of trying, but it just hasn't worked. I mean, Toronto obviously hasn't gotten to the place that they believe that they should be by this point, and that's contending for the Stanley Cup. It's just not there. So I think that change isn't a bad thing, but I say that, and I do want to give Shanahan some flowers, because I'm old enough to remember what it was like pre-Brendan Shanahan as head of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And man, it was chaos most days and most off seasons. And there was always levels of uncertainty at basically every layer of the organization. He cleaned a lot of that up. He brought the alumni back into the mix. I mean, there are statues honoring the great players historically the Toronto Maple Leafs outside Scotiabank. Well, that doesn't happen without Brendan Shanahan. So I don't think that Keith Pelley is going to announce that a search is underway to replace Brendan Shanahan. I think they're just simply going to absorb it internally. You know, maybe Pelley takes on more of the board responsibilities. That's fine. And Tree Living handles all things under the umbrella of hockey operations. So Brendan he's had a good run. He wants to work again, and I think he'll get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's so high profile, obviously. And I mean, what would be his biggest, you hate to dwell on it, people will point to the big money given without seemingly much fight to the big guys. Is that his his biggest failure?
I think so. But again, you know, you have general managers and departments that manage that stuff. And I think wrongly people just assume that Shanahan had to rubber stamp everything. No, he was involved. Did he have influence? Of course. You know, given his resume as an executive and formerly as a player, I mean, why wouldn't you lean on Brendan Shanahan, you know, for hockey opinion, right? It's a good question for sure. The length of contracts. Like, I remember when they initially gave Austin Matthews that short-term deal out of his entry-level contract, every manager across the league went, what the hell is going on in Toronto, and why did they do that? Because it kind of upset the apple cart. So in part that, stubbornly supportive of the core four: Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, and by extension 5 if you want to throw Morgan Riley into that mix. That is going to change. It'll change naturally with Marner being an unrestricted, Tavares being an unrestricted free agent. And maybe the planets just didn't align. I thought that Kyle Dubas did an effective job. He did. Brendan went outside the box in bringing Dubas initially in, and then ultimately he becomes general manager. This group here, and I'll still include Shanahan, Treliving, Berube, 3 like-minded hockey men for the first time ever under the leadership, the guidance of Brendan Shanahan. And I don't know how he could have got there sooner, like 5 years ago. I don't know. But I think in hindsight, I would have liked to have seen what this group is capable of beyond the core 4 era, which I think ends as of right now.
Big game 2 tonight in Dallas. A collapse. I'm not sure. Looking back at that San Jose Vegas game from however many years ago, when it was the power play goals and they pissed away that lead in the third. Yeah. That was to settle that series. But it didn't feel like I really liked Edmonton's game through 2 periods, and they got into penalty troubles, and not every night is the team going to cash in on every power play. I don't know. Right. I don't really know what I took from Dallas in that game. They were opportunistic, but they needed the door open for them. But it was, and they barged through it. What were your thoughts on 1 as we head into 2?
Well, I'd love to have been a fly on the wall during that second intermission in that Dallas room, because I don't know if Pete DeBoer stripped the paint off, or it was just the leadership of the Dallas Stars that said, boys, we're going on the power play here to start the third period. Let's wake the hell up and get something done. Yeah. Because they marched into that final period. They established the screen. The penalty kill looked flat to me. It wasn't very mobile for the Edmonton Oilers. Heiskanen kind of drifts one in from long range that goes off the number of Stu Skinner and into the net, and the tone of that hockey game changed. So, I mean, the mindset is a pretty simple one if you're Edmonton going into game 2. Same start. I mean, they were blistering pace. right? McDavid was doing what he does other than scoring, didn't. I thought Leon Draisaitl was terrific in the first 2 periods of that hockey game. Nuge gets a power play goal, so it looks like things are clicking there. But you're right. I mean, it's pretty simple to try and clean things up on the penalty front, or the penalty kill has to be better. Either way, you can't do both. And some of the experience kind of unraveled a bit, didn't it, in that third period? Like, Corey Perry can't take that penalty. And he's sitting on the bench. Who, me? Yeah. I mean, you cross-check the guy in the face. And then, the Evander Kane penalty on Matt Duchene. Same thing. I didn't do anything. Well, we didn't see the view on Canadian TV, but the American angle showed Evander Kane's stick smacking Duchene on the left side of the face. Yeah. So, I mean, that's stuff that you can eliminate, and they feel pretty strongly if they do that they're in good shape.
Yeah, I'm happy for Dallas to win, but I'm not concerned that Edmonton can't right the ship.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
That's a pretty easy sell, I would think, in that locker room. Let's stay disciplined. 5-on-5, we're in great shape. We know our power play is going to be lethal, and it's just I fall prey to it all the time. You watch a couple games and you think, oh, I know how this is going to happen, but a round ago, Toronto was up 2-0, and this team's different. Hey, Florida's out of gas. They can't do it. Too much hockey over the last few years, and now here we are. Maybe the greatest team ever.
I mean, in defending the Dallas Stars here, like just pop them up a little bit is more to the point. Mikko Rantanen was pretty quiet in that game, and Jason Robertson, he's not up to stride yet. Like if he can get going, and they're going to need him to if they're going to win a Stanley Cup, then look out, because Tyler Seguin, man, he was rolling. I mean, that breakaway goal he scored was next level, and Duchene gets a goal. So now you've got other pieces contributing. It's not all about Mikko Rantanen, but the Moose is a handful out there, so let's see what he brings tonight.
Nice. All right, we'll let you get out of here and get to work. Get to real work.
Yep.
This ass grabbing that we do over here.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, pal. Darren Dreger. Hey, buddies. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.